We just witnessed one of the greatest battles the One Piece world will never know, possibly the peak moment of this entire flashback, and something that I personally was not prepared for, as six of the world's most powerful pirates and marine alike all gathered together to take down one otherworldly foe. Okay, so just like the last chapter, even after reading it 3 times, I honestly wasn't sure where to even begin with this one. So much epic stuff happens in just these short 13 pages, 16 if you count the double page spreads as 2 each, that it's hard to pick just one thing to focus on, which is why I'm starting this video off with 3 and combining them into one. Because the Captain John, Gabon, and Dragon sections of this chapter all actually go hand in hand and tell one complete story. Well, okay, sort of. We still have to see exactly how those conclude, how Dragon and John get off the island and Gabon actually making it back to their ship with the treasure, but you know what I mean. Now, one thing we don't have to wait another chapter to solve is the mystery around John's devil fruit, because ever since a certain shot of him appeared in an earlier chapter of him having an arm made of scrap metal very similar to what we tend to see, or I guess tended is more accurate, from Kid, many began to speculate that John was the previous owner of Kid's Jiki Jiki no Mi, or magnet fruit. Which yeah, turns out everyone with eyes got this one right. And Oda wanted to make sure that there was no question about which fruit John had after this chapter, so he not only gave us a very clear visual shot of the pirate using the power in a very cool double page spread, but also had some unnamed off-screen pirate call out exactly what fruit it was. Or at least I think it was a pirate. I don't know. We don't actually get to see them on panel, so it's who's to say. Anyway, getting back to the proper order of things, Roger leaves Gabon in charge of getting the injured crew and treasure back to the ship while he goes off after what injured them, which we'll get to later. While Dragon proved me wrong for my last review, was not actually heading towards the danger, but managed to find his way to safety, and was going to send Baby Shanks off with a marine ship he found near the southeast coast of the island. Which kinda has me questioning his logic, because one of two things were definitely going to happen if you made it to that ship. Either A, they were going to kill the baby because no one from the island is allowed to leave the island, or B, he would have told them that it was Garling's kid, and then they would just give it right back to Garling. So yeah, probably not Dragon's smartest moment, but at this point the kid's been through a lot, so I'm not faulting him for thinking, hey, this is the best chance I have. And who knows, maybe before he even made it to the ship, he would have ran into Gabon and Gabon would have accidentally ended up with Shanks anyway. But unfortunately for both of them, at this moment, Captain John decided to play his hand, using his fruit to pull in all the metal in the surrounding area, hoping to nab all the treasure for himself, and then escape with a few pirates loyal to him. Pulling in not only the treasure chests the Roger pirates had gathered, but also anyone holding metal, including Gabon and Dragon. Only to be shot down within moments by Gonzoli, whose name I'm not 100% sure I'm saying right, before getting his hands on any of the treasure. And look, Dragon obviously would have been like an ant going up against a spider in this moment. There would have been no way this young marine would have stood a chance against a seasoned pirate, let alone a notable member of Rox's crew. But that being said, I can't help but feel like we missed out on a great moment for Gabon to really get some much needed screen time here. Because so far, he's been more like a background member of the crew, giving much more of the spotlight to Roger and Rayleigh in his flashback, which I guess actually does make him the perfect Sanji counterpart on this crew. But still, it would have been so satisfying to see a quick battle between these two pirates once Gabon landed with the treasure. I say quick because I personally think that this would have been only slightly longer than Gabon's fight with Summers in the present day, especially not if he's getting KO'd by one shot like that. And seeing a battle between two members of two of the most notorious pirate crews of this era through Dragon's POV would have added so much to his story here. But hey, consolation prize, this chapter reminded me that Gonzi is even a character because I completely forgot about him. And we see that he's not done taking out his crewmates just yet, as we see him take a page from John's book, planning to take out Shiki so that he can take the treasure for himself. Which, just like my idea for Gabon versus John, I don't see going well. Now, the ending of all this is that after John gets taken out, his power cuts off, causing everything he was pulling to fall to the ground, including Dragon, who took a pretty nasty hit trying to protect baby Shanks. And once he came to, he knows that Shanks was gone, which we then cut to the baby finding a treasure chest and assumedly climbing aside, being drawn in by the dazzle of the treasure. Which look, if this is how Shanks ends up in the chest, then everyone, myself included, got it wrong, and we likely won't be seeing Dragon getting his devil fruit on God Valley. I say if though, because that is not necessarily the end of the storyline, because we can see the very same chest flying near Dragon before they fall to the ground, meaning that it and baby Shanks must be somewhere close by, so this could all be one big fake out from Oda, and Dragon will find the baby in the next chapter, and continue trying to find a secure way to get him off the island, leading him to getting his fruit the way everyone theorized. But look here, I wouldn't bet on that. The more likely outcome is that Shanks climbs aside, and since Gabon was being pulled in that direction too, and was told by his captain to get the treasure back to the ship, that he'll just pick it up without noticing the baby inside of it and take it back with him. That being said though, this doesn't mean we won't see Dragon getting his fruit before the flashback is over. Obviously assuming he even has one to begin with, which we still don't know that for sure. But if he does, then there's still plenty of ways he could get it before escaping the island. All I know is that I hope this isn't the end of Dragon's involvement here, because he really has become my favorite part of this whole event, and with how well Oda has ran his story so far, I'm really hoping for a satisfying conclusion to it, which this would very much not be. Speaking of satisfying endings, I'm going to be honest, I feel like Oda kind of ruined Rayleigh's with this chapter, specifically because of where he chose to have the Vice Captain show up here, or I guess when. Slight spoiler for the next topic of the video, but there's a certain big blast of Conquerors hockey that a character shoots across the island, so big that even no-name pirates on the opposite side can feel how intense it is. And despite having to have felt it himself, Rayleigh does not seem even the slightest bit concerned over what that monster's power was. I don't know, I get that his main focus is getting Shaggy off the island, but you would think that we get at least a thought bubble questioning what he just felt, or even showing a bit of concern for his captain. Now, that being said, it could very well be that once he gets her back to the ship, Rayleigh does a big ol' U-turn and hosts it back to fight alongside Roger. But for now, I feel like we were better off not seeing him again for the remainder of this flashback, because his exit last chapter was honestly the perfect send-off, and every sighting afterward will just subtract from that. Also, another quick side note, we see Lin try and get back at Kaido in this chapter, but completely misses her attack at him, and ends up accidentally helping out in a big combined attack against Imu. Which I guess now that we've gone through all the side dishes for this chapter, it's time to get to the main course. The epic battle between Rox and Imu, the world's most dangerous pirate, versus the secret king of the world. Which, surprisingly enough, we don't open the chapter going right into, despite that being the setup for the ending of the last one. Instead, we actually focus in on Roger and Garp in the intro, both establishing their own personal reasons for teaming up with Rox to take down this devil. Garp's being pretty simple, he doesn't like any of this whole hunt business, and has absolutely had it up to here with the world government and the nobles, especially once he sees Imu attack a few marines for simply being in their presence. And since he doesn't officially know that that's Saturn, let alone an Imu controls Saturn, he is using the excuse of just stepping in to take out a dangerous giant monster to explain away him working alongside pirates to beat up on the old man. Probably not going to go well regardless when it comes time to answer for this with his superiors, but much like Luffy, Garp is a very much I'll deal with that later kind of guy. Roger's reason is also pretty simple, but also gives us a pretty important hint to explain something that happens later on in this battle. Just like with the Marines, Imu also attacked his more normal crewmates with these black, shadowy tendrils. And the ones that were hit by this say the wound is somehow compelling them, almost like Imu was trying to take control, which we don't really get any more about them and the after effects here in this chapter, but that might be something to look out for in the future one. Anyway, just like Garp with the Marines, Roger is not happy with what happened to his crew, and that's why he runs off to fight Imu alongside Zebek, who we see is the very first person to actually confront this monster. And look, when I say monster, I mean monster. Because Imu towers over the entire battlefield even more so than Saturn and the rest of the elders did when they appeared on Egghead in the anime. And for some reason, Whitebeard and Kaido just sit back and let him go in alone at first, despite how very obviously dangerous this thing in front of them is. Not exactly sure why though, considering they seemed ready to go last chapter. But thanks to them hanging back for a moment, we get a chance to see another one-on-one discussion between these two, where Imu refers to Zebek as Davy Jones. And dude, this is when everything clicked for me. Because we have right here Imu calling Zebek essentially the Davy Jones of this era. But here's the thing, he wasn't. Just like Roger wasn't the Joy Boy of this era. He even all but admits that he isn't when he says, nah, that's not me. I'm likely going to do a video on this theory once I actually have time to sit down and really think about it, but the gist of what I'm thinking right now is that both of these power captains had the power, ability, and inherited will needed to be the Joy Boy and Davy Jones of this era, but neither were chosen by fate to be so. Instead, they are both the ones meant to pave the way for the true successors of those legends, Luffy and Blackbeard. But Imu didn't know that. They thought that Zebek was Davy Jones, hence why they were so determined to snuff him out alongside his entire clan. Because with Davy Jones comes Joy Boy, and the two of them together are the only ones that could possibly beat Imu. Which is why, despite having 6 of the most powerful people alive all attacking at once, it didn't even phase Imu. And look, I have no way to prove this, but I would imagine that these 6's combined hockey has to be at least comparable to Joy Boy's, which brought Imu to their knees in a panic. And yet, look at Imu here, as calm and collected as one could possibly be, like they know that this won't work on them, because as impressive as this team up is, they were missing the 2 people fated to defeat this devil, and without them, no amount of damage will bring Imu down. It also means that they don't have to fear fate protecting Zebek as much as it would if he was the true Davy Jones. So Imu was able to bait him into getting close by threatening Eris and Teach, who they managed to track down using observation hockey, so that they can stab him with the same tendrils that they used on the Marines and Pirates earlier on, which we've already established has this compelling effect to them, which does end up working on Zebek, lowering his will just enough for Imu to use Dami Reversi on him, turning the seemingly strongest pirate in the world into one of their demons, who they then command to track down and kill his wife and child, but we'll have to wait and see if he will follow those orders, or if Zebek will have just enough willpower left to fight off Imu's control. Either way, I have a feeling the next chapter is going to be the beginning of the end of God Valley, and I look forward to covering it with all of you. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about the chapter, your thoughts, your theories. I've been Zay, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you next time.